He was seconds away from signing away his empire, but what the cleaning woman whispered into his ear made his hand freeze in midair. And if you stay with me until the end, you'll understand why sometimes the quietest voice in the room carries the loudest truth. And before we begin, if stories about second chances, hidden courage, and life-changing moments move you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because this one will stay with you long after it's over. The boardroom on the 42nd floor smelled of polished wood and ambition. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a glittering skyline, a city Daniel Whitmore had once proudly called his kingdom. At 48, Daniel was the definition of success. Founder and CEO of Whitmore Technologies, owner of luxury penthouses in 3 countries, featured on magazine covers with captions like, "The visionary who never fails." But today, Daniel Whitmore was failing. His company's stock had been plummeting for months. A risky expansion into overseas markets had drained reserves. Investors were panicking. Competitors were circling like sharks scenting blood in the water. And sitting across from him at the long glass table was Victor Kane, smooth, smiling, patient, with a buyout contract that would save the company. Save it by taking it away from him. Daniel stared at the final page. Once he signed, Whitmore Technologies would no longer be his. He would remain as a symbolic executive for a year, then quietly step aside. His name would stay on the building for branding purposes, but the heart of what he built would belong to someone else. "It's the best possible outcome," Victor said calmly. "You keep your reputation. Your employees keep their jobs. Everyone wins. Everyone wins." Daniel's jaw tightened. He thought of the nights he'd slept on the office couch 25 years ago. The first computer he assembled by hand in a tiny garage. The loans he'd taken when banks laughed at him. He had sacrificed relationships, birthdays, even his marriage for this company. And now it was slipping through his fingers. His pen hovered over the paper. Outside the boardroom, unnoticed by most, Elena Ruiz pushed her cleaning cart quietly down the hallway. She had worked in the building for 6 years. She knew which executives left late and which ones avoided eye contact. She knew which assistants cried in the restroom and which managers yelled behind closed doors. She also knew Daniel Whitmore. Not personally, not in the way the board did, but she had seen him at midnight, alone, staring out at the city with tired eyes. She had once found him asleep on the office sofa, tie loosened, a half-eaten sandwich beside him. She had heard the arguments through thin walls during the early days of the company's struggles. Elena understood something about struggle. She was a single mother. She had come to the country with nothing but a suitcase and a promise to give her daughter Sophia a better life. She cleaned offices at night and took English classes during the day. She listened more than she spoke, observed more than she was seen. That morning, she had overheard something she was never meant to hear. As she approached the boardroom door to empty the trash bin outside, she heard Victor's hushed voice speaking to one of his assistants in the hallway earlier. "Once he signs, we strip the research division first," Victor had whispered. "Layoffs within 6 months. Move everything overseas. The brand is valuable, the people aren't." Elena had frozen. The people aren't. She thought of Miguel from IT who always brought her coffee when he worked late. Of Sarah in accounting who once helped her fill out tax forms. Of the young interns who reminded her of her daughter's future. She stood outside the boardroom now, heart racing. Through the glass, she saw Daniel's pen hovering over the contract. It wasn't her place. She could lose her job. She could be accused of interfering. Her mind screamed to walk away. But her heart remembered every time she had stayed silent in her life and regretted it. Before she could overthink it, she knocked gently and stepped inside. Every head turned. Victor frowned. "We're in the middle of something." Elena kept her eyes lowered respectfully. "I'm sorry, sir. I just need to empty the trash." Daniel waved dismissively, barely looking at her. "Go ahead." The room returned to its tense silence. The scratching of Elena replacing the trash liner was the only sound. Daniel pressed the pen to paper. And then Elena did something that shocked even herself. As she passed behind Daniel's chair, she leaned in slightly and whispered, so quietly only he could hear. "They don't plan to save your people. They plan to replace them." Daniel's hand stopped. A drop of ink stained the contract. His heart pounded. Slowly, he turned his head. For the first time, he really looked at her. "What did you say?" he asked under his breath. Victor stiffened. "Is there a problem?" Daniel ignored him. Elena swallowed hard. Her voice trembled, but she held his gaze. "I heard them this morning," she whispered. "They will close departments. Lay off your staff." Move everything away. They only want your name. Silence fell across the room. Victor's face hardened. This is inappropriate. She has no idea what she's talking about. Maybe she didn't have proof. Maybe she only had overheard words. But something in her eyes, steady, sincere, cut through the fog clouding Daniel's judgment. For months, Daniel had been exhausted, pressured, isolated. Every advisor had told him this was the only option. He had stopped questioning, stopped fighting, but now doubt surged back to life. Step outside for a moment, Daniel said to Victor. That's not necessary. It is. Victor reluctantly gathered his papers and left with the board members trailing behind, murmuring in confusion. The door closed. Daniel turned fully toward Elena. Why would you tell me this? She hesitated. Because people here are good people. They work hard. They trust you. The word hit him. Trust. When I came to this country, she continued softly, I worked for a company that promised us security. They sold everything and left without warning. My friends lost their jobs overnight. I promised myself, if I ever saw something like that again, I wouldn't stay quiet. Daniel felt something shift inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Clarity. He looked down at the contract again. He had been so focused on saving his pride, on avoiding public embarrassment, that he had almost betrayed the very people who built his dream with him. Thank you, he said quietly. Elena nodded and quickly left the room, her hands shaking. When Victor returned, confident and composed, Daniel stood. I'm not signing. The words landed like thunder. Victor's smile vanished. Excuse me, I built this company with people who believed in me. I won't hand it over to someone who sees them as expendable. Victor's tone turned cold. If you walk away, your stock will crash further. You could lose everything. Daniel inhaled deeply. For the first time in months, fear didn't paralyze him. Then I'll rebuild, he said. The deal collapsed. News spread quickly. The media speculated wildly. Stocks dipped further in the short term. Critics called Daniel emotional, reckless. But something unexpected happened inside Whitmore Technologies. When Daniel gathered his employees in the main lobby and told them the truth, told them about the offer, about the risk, about his decision, something powerful ignited. Instead of panic, there was applause. Instead of doubt, there was loyalty. I should have trusted you sooner, Daniel admitted. We're in trouble, but we will fix this together. Teams worked overtime voluntarily. Executives took temporary pay cuts. Daniel sold one of his penthouses to inject personal capital back into research. Engineers developed an innovative product update that competitors hadn't anticipated. Employees shared ideas openly, united by transparency rather than fear. Months passed. It wasn't easy. There were sleepless nights and near misses. But slowly, the company stabilized. A breakthrough partnership with a sustainable tech firm boosted public trust. Investors returned, this time on terms Daniel negotiated carefully. A year later, Whitmore Technologies wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. And one evening, as the city lights shimmered beyond the same 42nd floor windows, Daniel called Elena into his office. She stood nervously, unsure why the CEO had summoned her. I owe you more than a thank you, Daniel said. On his desk lay an envelope. Inside was a scholarship fund established in her daughter Sophia's name, covering full tuition through university. Alongside it was a promotion offer. Head of Community Relations, a role created to ensure employees' voices were always heard. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I'm just a cleaning woman, she whispered. Daniel smiled gently. No, you're the reason this company still has a soul. Years later, when business students asked Daniel what his greatest decision as a CEO had been, they expected him to name a product launch or acquisition. Instead, he would say, listening. Because sometimes wisdom doesn't wear a suit. Sometimes it pushes a cleaning cart and speaks in a trembling whisper. If Elena had stayed silent, Daniel would have signed. Hundreds might have lost their jobs. A company built on passion would have become another hollow brand. But one brave moment changed everything. So if you're ever in a room where something feels wrong, don't assume your voice doesn't matter. It might be the very thing that saves someone from losing everything. And if this story reminded you that courage can come from the most unexpected places, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because the next story might be the one that reminds you of your own power. Sometimes, the difference between losing everything and building something greater is a whisper.